There is belief, and then there is skepticism. And between those two lies a vast territory of questions and the unknown. But what if reality is far more complex than we've been willing to perceive? And what if the stories that we dismissed as myth and legend hold the keys to understanding consciousness? From ghostly encounters to mysterious lights in the sky, humanity has always sensed there was something more out there. Some call it the paranormal, and others call it the divine. Some search the stars for answers, while others look within. They are all connected, threads in the grand tapestry of life. But we stand at a place where the fabric between realities is much thinner than you might think, because this is Crossroads of the Veil.
Good morning and welcome to the hearing regarding UAP disclosures. For too long, the issue of unidentified anomalous phenomena, commonly known as UAPs, has been shrouded in secrecy, stigma, and in some cases, outright dismissal. Today, I want to state clearly that this is not science fiction or creating speculation. This is about national security, government accountability, and the American people's right to the truth.
For decades, the subject of unidentified anomalous phenomena, or UAPs, what many of us still know as UFOs, has lingered in the shadows, a whispered secret, a topic relegated to the fringes of popular culture. It's been the stuff of speculation, late-night radio shows, and hushed conversations. But something profound is shifting now. A growing chorus demanding answers is piercing through the decades of denial, forcing us to confront a reality far stranger, far more complex, and far more unnerving than we ever dared to imagine. Today we embark on an investigation of the most recent and compelling evidence that tears back the veil of secrecy. This is not about fueling speculation. It's about demanding the basic transparency that every American has the right to expect. It's about asking what we know, what we don't, and why in a free society we have been told so little. Our journey will immerse us in a fact-driven narrative engaging with documented incidents, the brave individuals who stepped forward, and the formidable institutional walls erected to keep us in the dark. Prepare yourselves, for we are about to conduct an extensive deep dive into a pervasive sense of tension, an ominous atmosphere of the unknown that challenges our deepest assumptions about reality itself. The very foundation of our democratic accountability is at stake, as Senator Schumer profoundly stated. Multiple credible sources alleged a constitutional crisis over UFOs. This isn't just a political inconvenience. It's a fundamental challenge to the integrity of our government, the responsible use of taxpayer funds, and Congress's constitutional duty to oversee the executive branch. The critical question now isn't just what these UAPs are, but how we as a society confront this reality when the truth has been so deliberately and often aggressively withheld for so long. This profound challenge to public trust demands our unwavering attention. Our journey into the unknown must begin on the front lines with those who have faced these phenomena firsthand. These are not mere anecdotes. These are documented incidents, often occurring in highly sensitive military locations observed by trained personnel whose job it is to know what's in our skies and seas. Their testimonies form the bedrock of this escalating crisis of transparency.
We have heard from a number of whistleblowers, specifically military pilots, that the reason for not coming forward publicly is out of fear that speaking out would cost them their flight status and potentially their careers. This is unacceptable. We cannot protect our airspaces if our best trained observers are silenced. We cannot advance science if we refuse to ask questions. And we cannot maintain trust in government if we keep the American people in the dark.
Our first witness is Jeffrey Nuccitelli, a man whose 16 years of active duty service as a U.S. Air Force veteran and former military police officer lends immediate and unimpeachable gravity to his words. He stood before Congress to break a silence enforced by fear, retaliation, stigma, and confusion.
My name is Jeffrey Nuccitelli. I'm a former military police officer with 16 years of active duty service in the U.S. Air Force. I'm here today because the American people have both the right and the responsibility to know the truth about unidentified aerial phenomenon. That truth remains hidden, classified and silenced by fear, retaliation, stigma, and confusion. Today, we are here to help break that silence.
His testimony details 5 separate UAP incidents that unfolded between 2003 and 2005 at Vandenberg Air Force Base. This is not just any military installation, it is a site of paramount national security importance, home to the National Missile Defense Project and the launch pad for missions deemed crucial by the National Reconnaissance Office. The incursions began on the night of October 14, 2003. Boeing contractors working late suddenly reported a massive glowing red square, silently hovering over 2 separate missile defense sites. Nuccitelli vividly described it as being the size of a football field, floating silently over the launch pad glowing an intense red. After several minutes that must have felt like an eternity, it drifted eastward across the base and simply vanished over the hills. This event, now known as the Vandenberg Red Square, was so significant it was later referenced by Chairwoman Luna in a congressional hearing. We are told that official Air Force records of this event are allegedly held by Arrow and the FBI. But the night was far from over. Later that evening, while Nuccitelli was on duty, security guards at another critical launch site began reporting a bright, fast-moving object over the ocean. As he responded, he recalled how chaos erupted over the radio. He could hear his friends screaming, their voices tight with panic. "It's coming right at us. It's coming right for us. And now it's right here." Moments later, an eerie calm fell over the radio as they reported it had shot off and was gone. When Nuccitelli arrived, he found 5 shaken witnesses who struggled to describe what they had seen. A massive triangular craft larger than a football field that had hovered silently for about 45 seconds directly over their entry control point before shooting away at an impossible speed. The encounters didn't stop. Approximately a week later, another patrol reported an erratically behaving light over the ocean. Believing it might be an unannounced aircraft in restricted airspace, they declared an emergency, triggering an armed response. But before any forces could arrive, the object descended, either landing or hovering directly on their flight line before taking off again at that same impossible speed. The aftermath was chilling. Witnesses to this event were threatened and intimidated afterward. They were told to keep quiet and to think about what they were reporting. These were not isolated sightings. They were witnessed by multiple trained personnel, thoroughly documented, investigated, and reported up the chain of command. Yet, despite this comprehensive internal reporting, Nuccitelli testified that no guidance was ever received on how to handle these events. It suggests a deliberate vacuum of information, a systemic refusal to engage with the reality of the situation, leaving our frontline defenders in the dark. These were, in his words, unresolved incursions over one of our nation's most important bases. The movements described, silent hovering, instantaneous acceleration, shooting away at impossible speed, represent what is known as anomalous kinematics. These are characteristics that defy our current understanding of physics and any known aerospace technology. Nuccitelli himself, having investigated these events, noted a strange intelligence to them. The objects would respond to being observed almost as if they were curious. When confronted with testimony about Russian UAPs activating missile launch codes, Nuccitelli noted the chilling similarities, recalling other historical incursions over U.S. nuclear installations, where advanced objects would visit and leave, leaving authorities baffled and unable to respond effectively. The personal impact on Nuccitelli and his colleagues was profound. What they saw, he said, changed our lives and the way we think about everything. The objects, whether they were lights or solid craft, were incredibly profound. This deep personal conviction from a trained observer, coupled with official documentation, like a military police blotter he possessed, elevates these events beyond mere anecdote to formally documented, albeit still largely classified, incidents.
We've been talking about this for 20 years. We don't know what we saw. What we saw changed our lives and the way we think about everything. It was incredibly profound. The object I saw, I don't even know if it was an object. It was a light. It was an orb. It didn't look like a craft, but it did look solid. And that's what we talk about. We noticed the object, and this was a pattern across all the encounters. Someone would see a light. They would pay attention to the light. And then the object responds. It performs for you. And then they come down and they investigate you. So it's almost like they're curious. So that's the thing we primarily talk about. Why did it come after we noticed it? Maybe it noticed us after we noticed it.
But perhaps the most disturbing finding from Nuccitelli's testimony is the alleged routine destruction of official Air Force records. Every 3 years, on a set schedule, the documentation simply disappears. This routine act prevents any retrospective tracking and constitutes a significant systemic loss of critical data. The silence and intimidation of witnesses, coupled with the vanishing records, paints a disturbing picture of deliberate obfuscation. It underscores what Chairwoman Luna termed a protective complex within the intelligence community, a system seemingly designed to trap secrets rather than release them.
Adversarial nations are not waiting for us to catch up. They are studying these phenomena as well aggressively.
But I do know when we're being lied to, and we are definitely being lied to. There's just no doubt about that.
From the skies above Vandenberg, we now plunge into the depths of the Pacific Ocean. Here, an active-duty U.S. Navy operations specialist, Senior Chief Petty Officer Alexandro Wiggins, experienced what is known as a transmedium event, an incident that challenges our most fundamental understanding of physics. On February 15, 2023, while serving aboard the USS Jackson off the coast of Southern California, Wiggins was in Warning Area 291, an area already known for a history of unusual craft sightings. What he reported that day would reverberate through the halls of Congress.
My name is Alexandro Wiggins. I'm an active duty U.S. Navy Operations Specialist, Senior Chief Petty Officer.
Wiggins observed a self-luminous tic-tac-shaped object emerge directly from the ocean. This description is eerily familiar to those who have followed UAP reports for years, but it didn't stop there. This single object then linked up with 3 others. The 4 objects now in formation disappeared simultaneously, with what he described as a high synchronized near-instantaneous acceleration. What made this observation so extraordinary was the complete absence of any conventional propulsion signatures. There was no sonic boom, no exhaust plume, no articulation of control surfaces like wings or rudders, nothing. The ship's advanced Sapphire imaging system confirmed it. No visible exhaust or heat signatures distinguishing these objects from any known conventional aircraft. Shortly after their synchronized departure, the radar track simply dropped, as if the objects had ceased to exist in our dimension. These were not just fleeting visual sightings. The observations were, in Wiggins' words, multi-sensor and recorded, with time and location data overlaid on the source frames, which have since been made public by journalists. This multi-sensor corroboration provides a critical layer of verification often missing from UAP reports. Wiggins' testimony directly supports the growing body of evidence for UAP exhibiting transmedium capability, the ability to seamlessly transition between air and water. This characteristic has been a key focus of the UAP task force, a clear indicator of its profound implications. The term Wiggins used to describe the object's synchronized movement, 2 steps behind instantaneous, perfectly encapsulates the anomalous kinematics at play. This isn't just fast. It defies our current understanding of inertia and momentum. It suggests a technology that can manipulate space-time or gravity itself. This encounter aboard the USS Jackson was not his first. Wiggins had also served aboard the USS Omaha in 2019, which reported being surrounded by a swarm of unidentified objects, one of which reportedly submerged into the sea. This pattern of repeat exposure among military personnel hints at a kind of in-group knowledge that is not reflected in public records, challenging the official assumption that these are rare or isolated events. When asked what his initial thoughts were upon witnessing the impossible, Wiggins' answer was stark. Everything that I was told and taught as a kid and as a growing adult no longer was applicable. The possibility of defying gravity reshaped his entire understanding of what was possible. Yet despite this profound encounter and its multi-sensor corroboration, Wiggins reported a complete and utter lack of official debriefing, after-action reviews, or follow-up investigations from his command or any other government agency. This glaring absence of investigation, especially after a significant incident involving multi-million-dollar national security assets, is deeply concerning. When asked if anyone in the U.S. government tried to explain what he saw, or to dissuade him from speaking about it, Wiggins simply stated, "No one." This suggests either a profound lack of interest, or perhaps more chillingly, a deliberate avoidance of confronting the implications. The video evidence of the USS Jackson encounter itself, now public, defies what we know to be technologically possible. As Representative Moskowitz articulated, The American people, when they see such evidence, are left with two stark possibilities. It's either a weapons program being reverse engineered by our governments or other governments, or it's nobody's government and it's not from here. Wiggins' response was simple and direct, one or the other. Our final first-hand account comes from Dylan Borland, a U.S. Air Force veteran with a long career in federal service as a geospatial intelligence specialist. He came before Congress as a federal whistleblower, having testified to both the Intelligence Community Inspector General and AARO, with direct first-hand knowledge of non-human craft and technologies. His personal account from Langley Air Force Base in 2012 provides another critical piece to this unfolding puzzle.
My name is Dylan Borland, a former 1N1 geospatial intelligence specialist for the United States Air Force in an active duty enlisted capacity from 2010 to 2013. I've also been employed with BAE Systems and Intrepid Solutions as a senior analyst, expert in analyzing video, radar, and advanced electro-optical imagery for official identification of aerial order of battle as well as naval and ground order of battle. I'm a federal whistleblower, having testified to both the ICIG and AARO with direct firsthand knowledge of and experience with craft and technologies that are not ours and are reportedly operating without congressional oversight. The future of humanity is one which we either travel to the stars or regress to the Stone Age with this technology. The time to act is now.
While living in the barracks at Langley and on a break from night work, Borland witnessed a white light appear and stop about 100 feet in the air. Initially, he dismissed it as a weather balloon, but his curiosity got the better of him, and he began walking towards the flight line for a closer look. As he walked, the light flew across the base. As it approached him, something incredible happened. A triangle manifested around the light. He couldn't say if it was some form of active camouflage deactivating, or if the structure simply appeared around the light, but the transformation was undeniable. The craft stopped about 100 feet in front of him and approximately 100 feet above. Borland described it as a perfect equilateral triangle between 1 to 2 stories thick with sharp 90-degree edges. It was so large he could never see the top of it. It had 4 lights, one on each corner, and a larger central light that was 2 to 3 times the size of the corner lights. The most peculiar visual detail was its surface. He described it as a black metallic flake paint, but on top of the craft was a gold lava plasma with some type of fluid going over and around it. He stood under this silent, bizarre craft for about 2 to 3 minutes. The encounter was not just visual. As he stood there, his telephone got extremely hot, completely froze and died. Then the central light flashed 2 to 3 times. There was no sound. Immediately, it shot up to the altitude of a commercial jet at minimum. As it ascended, Borland felt static electricity all over his body and smelled the distinct odor of ozone like the air after a thunderstorm or lightning storm. The entire event, from the light's first appearance to its slow drift eastward over the Atlantic Ocean, lasted about 15 minutes. This incident showcases several key anomalous characteristics of UAPs: silent operation despite massive size, interference with electronic equipment, and rapid, impossible ascent with associated electromagnetic effects. Having been exposed to enough classified programs in his career, Borland's initial reaction was simple. Okay, so this exists as well. The description of the craft's surface, gold lava plasma, some type of fluid, suggests properties far beyond conventional aerospace engineering. This dynamic fluid surface adds to the enigmatic nature, hinting at unknown material science or exotic energy fields. Initially, Borland believed the craft was U.S. government technology. However, when pressed during the hearing, his answer became cryptic. He stated, knowing what I know now, I'll have to answer that question in a SCIF. Probably. A SCIF is a secure classified facility. When asked if he thought it belonged to a foreign government, he replied with a firm, I do not. No. This classified knowledge, which he could not disclose in a public setting, casts a chilling shadow on the true origins of such advanced technology, pushing the possibilities far beyond terrestrial explanations. Borland's experience highlights the terrifying reality for whistleblowers. He was asked if he was scared for his safety. It was, he said, a complicated question. He wasn't scared for his physical safety of an agency coming to kill him, but his career was tarnished. He was unemployed, living off benefits that were about to run out. He explicitly stated that if he said the wrong word publicly, he could technically be charged with espionage, a crime that carries the death penalty. His personal cost becomes a powerful show. Don't tell example of the chilling effect that discourages others from coming forward. His situation facing a deliberately obstructed career, sustained reprisals and blacklisting after reporting to the Inspector General demonstrates the severe professional and personal consequences of daring to disclose UAP information.
I would put it to you this way. The statement Arrow has made is scientific evidence of extraterrestrials. Scientific evidence requires a scientific control. Extraterrestrial is an entity on another planet. The only way to scientifically prove extraterrestrial is we have to go to that planet, acquire technology, bring it back, and compare it to what we have here.
So you're saying they won't let anything out or they won't come forward unless they confirm that unless they go to the planet and confirm where its origin is.
That would be scientific evidence, yes. And by that statement, Arrow found no scientific evidence of extraterrestrials is basically, I don't want to call it a psyop, but a misrepresentation, because we do have things. But making that statement is not technically a lie. It's a misrepresentation of the full truth.
The profound experiences of Nuccitelli, Wiggins, and Borland are not isolated incidents. They are symptomatic of a deeper systemic issue. For decades, a wall of silence built from institutional denial, elaborate disinformation campaigns, and aggressive suppression has obscured the truth of UAPs from the public and even from most of Congress.
Recently, the former Aero director, known as Sean Kilpatrick, attacked our witnesses and members on this committee. It should be noted that he's a documented liar and brings into question what his purpose at Aero really was if it was not to follow up on investigations and disclose his findings to members of Congress.
At the center is investigative journalist George Knapp, a Peabody Award-winning reporter who stands as a pivotal figure in the UAP discourse. He has dedicated 38 years of his life to pursuing this mystery. His professional credentials, earned through extensive work on non-paranormal subjects like organized crime and political corruption, lend immense weight to his investigations.
I'm George Knapp, Chief Investigative Reporter at KLAS TV in Las Vegas. I began my pursuit of this weird mystery way back in 1987, and for 38 years, I've always approached this as a news story. It's not a matter of faith or belief. To me, it's a story, and it's an important one. Whistleblowers and witnesses who step up are routinely insulted, belittled, or worse. They risk their reputations, their careers, their clearances, their livelihoods, and sometimes much more than that, even their freedom. The public has been told over and over since the late 40s, there's nothing to worry about here. These mysterious craft seen by millions of people in the skies, in the oceans, over the land are not real. They're not a threat. The witnesses are wrong. They're crackpots. Don't believe it. I have confirmed on the record that Robert Bigelow and a trusted colleague from OSAP met with and negotiated with senior executives at Lockheed Martin and hammered out a deal wherein Bigelow's company, Bass, would receive a quantity of unusual material that had been stashed away and protected at a facility in California. That material was not made here.
What initially hooked Knapp was not sensational tales, but the paper trail. Massive piles of government documents obtained after the Freedom of Information Act became law. These documents, often written candidly by military and intelligence personnel behind closed doors, paint a much different picture than what the public, the press, and Congress have been told over many years. They explicitly admit that. These things are real. They're not fictitious. They can fly in formation. They're evasive. And they outperform any aircraft known to exist, including ours. Knapp asserts that the public has been told over and over since the late 1940s. There's nothing to worry about here. The witnesses are wrong. They're crackpots. Don't believe it. This institutionalized lying dates back decades with clear examples like the 1952 UFO flights over Washington, D.C., which were publicly dismissed as temperature inversions despite being captured on radar and chased by fighter jets, Knapp states unequivocally. They lied, and are still lying to the public and to Congress. The significance of this paper trail is immense. It provides irrefutable evidence from within the government's own archives that directly contradicts the public narrative. These documents are a testament to hidden knowledge, revealing that official denials were in fact deliberate deceptions. When asked about the percentage of Russian UAP documents he submitted to Congress that were previously public, Knapp estimated maybe 1%. This stark statistic highlights the depth of the historical cover-up and the sheer volume of new information that has been deliberately withheld. Knapp's early work, particularly his 1989 reporting on Bob Lazar's claims of reverse engineering alien technology at a secret facility called S4 near Area 51, was a pivotal and culturally impactful moment. While controversial, Knapp and his news director deemed the story credible enough to report. This decision popularized the concept of a government UAP cover-up and secret reverse engineering programs, creating a foundational narrative and a public consciousness that paved the way for the current wave of congressional and public interest. Knapp's role as the architect of modern UAP journalism is defined by his unwavering commitment to providing a platform for credible witnesses whose stories would otherwise be silenced. His approach, leveraging new media like the weaponized podcast with Jeremy Corbell, bypasses traditional gatekeepers and directly engages the public, a crucial conduit for truth in the absence of governmental transparency. The UAP phenomenon is not exclusive to the United States. As George Knapp revealed through his Russia files, the Soviet Union, like the U.S., had a massive secret program dedicated to investigating UAPs, a program known as Thread 3. This global secrecy underscores the pervasive nature of the unknown and the shared realization among world powers. In a daring move in the early 1990s, Knapp traveled to Russia and obtained classified Russian UAP documents. They revealed the USSR's extensive secret investigations into UFOs and their attempts to reverse engineer the technology. These documents, largely unknown to the public and even to the U.S. government, detailed a program that lasted a full decade from 1978 to 1988, and possibly longer. The objective, as described by Colonel Boris Sokolov, head of the Ministry of Defense program, was to figure out the technology that UFOs displayed in order to develop superior technology for the Soviet Union. The documents exposed an incredibly alarming incident that took place in October 1982 over an ICBM base in Ukraine. For 4 harrowing hours, a UFO appeared performing incredible maneuvers, splitting apart, fusing back together, appearing and disappearing at will. Then, in a moment that could have triggered a global catastrophe, the launch control codes for the intercontinental ballistic missiles lit up. Something had entered the correct codes. The missiles were fired up and ready to launch, and the Russian officers could not shut the system down. They were in a panic. Only when the UFOs vanished did the launch control system return to normal. Russian investigators, after disassembling the entire system, could not figure out what had happened. They thought it was a message from wherever the UFOs were from. This event brought the world to the brink of World War III, with UFOs responsible for it. Colonel Sokolov's program documented thousands of reports, including 40 incidents where Russian warplanes were sent to intercept UFOs and ordered to fire. In 3 of these incidents, the planes stalled out and crashed. 2 of those pilots died. Following these devastating losses, the Russians issued a stark new standing order. If you see a UFO, leave them alone. It was a tactical admission of a superior, unchallengeable technology. The parallels between these Russian experiences and U.S. incidents, such as Nucitelli's accounts over Vandenberg's missile defense sites, are undeniable. Both superpowers faced intrusions into their most sensitive nuclear installations, demonstrating a global pattern of UAP interest in human military capabilities. Dr. Rimily Avramenko, a Russian physicist, showed Knapp a model of what he called the weapon of the aliens, a plasma beam generator that could burn an instantaneous hole in a razor blade. This demonstrated Russia's advanced, albeit potentially limited, understanding of UAP technology. Senator Harry Reid and others came to believe that the U.S., Russia, and China had all recovered advanced unknown technology and were in a secret race to reverse engineer it. The first one to do so, they believed, would control everything. A chilling, secret global arms race for unimaginable power. Knapp's Russia files underscore a critical point.
No country in the world wants to say and admit that these objects are flying around in our airspace and there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, who wants to say that? The U.S. certainly doesn't. The Russians didn't either.
This shared vulnerability and the shared secret have led to a collective global cover-up where denial is a strategic necessity, even if it means lying to one's own citizens and allies.
It doesn't matter which administration, which party, both parties have got to come clean, particularly on this. So if the government thinks it can hide the truth and punish those who speak out, Congress has to keep pushing until the facts, whatever they are, wherever they lead, come to light.
The government's deep-seated strategy of concealment relies heavily on special access programs and unacknowledged special access programs. These are highly compartmentalized programs with restricted access, effectively creating a labyrinth of secrecy, where information is hidden not just from the public, but from the vast majority of Congress itself. As Representative Mace highlighted, compartmentalization is a deliberate way for the government to hide from Congress what's really going on and where the money is going. Access to UAP-related videos and files is strictly restricted. Generally, only members of specific committees get access. But even then, without knowing the specific code word or name of the program, access is often denied. Dylan Borland explicitly stated that whether he was legally allowed to speak on certain classified details, or whether members of Congress were even legally allowed to hear it, depended on knowing the specific program names beforehand. This system ensures that only a select, deeply vetted few are truly in the know. It's a deliberate design feature, not an accidental bug for control and obfuscation. This long-standing overclassification issue has historical precedent. The 9/11 Commission found that overclassification was a key factor in failing to prevent the attacks. Much of the UAP-related material and reverse engineering efforts have been moved out of the government and given to private contractors who stashed it away. George Knapp named Lockheed Martin as one such contractor, indicating that companies like Robert Bigelow's Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, which managed the largest acknowledged UFO program funded by the U.S. government, have been deeply involved. That program alone generated an enormous amount of research, yet the Defense Intelligence Agency has still not released 95% of this information. The testimony of Randy Anderson, an Army Green Beret, offers a terrifying glimpse into these contractor-run secrets. He was taken to an off-world technology division, where he saw seamless metal materials and a clear glass tablet that seemed to be projecting some type of writing that would only react to a conscious being interacting with it. Another witness, an Army officer and CID investigator known only as TB, was read into 18 different unacknowledged special access programs. He stated that these facilities are located everywhere, embedded in university-affiliated research centers, military bases, and nondescript commercial office spaces. Many, he said, are waived programs and are not reportable to Congress with very minimal oversight. The implications of this hidden labyrinth are staggering. Witness TB investigated a 3-star general who took his girlfriend to an unacknowledged special access programs to see a downed ET craft being reverse engineered. The Department of Justice could not prosecute the general because they did not have access to the unacknowledged special access programs, and their investigators did not have the clearance. This demonstrates that some of these unacknowledged special access programs are, for all intents and purposes, beyond the law, suggesting a shadow government operating beyond constitutional checks and balances. Congressional frustration is palpable. Representative Eric Burleson recounted trying to get an amendment for UAP disclosure onto the National Defense Authorization Act, only to have it conveniently deemed non-germane by staff, not even by an elected official. Last year, Congress was blocked by someone in House administration from receiving a full briefing from AARO. This systemic obstruction and the profound difficulty in auditing black budget funds for these programs perpetuate the deep-seated crisis of trust. The hidden truth of UAPs is not merely an abstract geopolitical puzzle, it comes at a profound human cost. The courage of those who dare to speak out is met with a ruthless, institutionalized campaign of reprisal and discrediting, designed to maintain the walls of silence at any cost. Whistleblowers are often lauded as the first line of defense against waste, fraud, and corruption. Yet, as Joe Spielberger of the Project on Government Oversight detailed, they face grave risks. The consequences for disclosing UAP-related information are particularly severe, creating a chilling effect across all government agencies. Dylan Borland's experience is a stark example. After testifying to the Inspector General about UAP programs, his professional career was deliberately obstructed. He was blacklisted from certain agencies within the intelligence community. He endured phishing attacks to assess what he had divulged, including being asked to disclose details of his complaint during a polygraph for an unrelated position. Borland, along with many others, now faces no job prospects and no foreseeable professional future. He lives off unemployment, his financial future precarious. He knows that speaking the wrong word could lead to espionage charges carrying a death penalty. The fear is profound. Jeffrey Nuccitelli admitted he would not have come forward if he didn't have documentation to prove some of his story and if others hadn't paved the way. Chief Wiggins received an okay from the top down in the Navy to testify, which gave him relief that he would not face any level of reprisal. These statements reveal the immense pressure and psychological burden whistleblowers carry, fearing for their careers, reputations, even their safety, and the financial security of their families. George Knapp recounted even more disturbing methods of intimidation. After he spoke to dozens of sources about Bob Lazar's claims, 6 of them were visited the very next day by government agents, security from former employers, men in black types who essentially threatened them and told them to keep their mouths shut. One contractor was explicitly told that they knew where her daughter lived, ending with the chilling warning, "It's a big desert out there. It would be a shame if anything happened to either of you." Knapp also realized his own newsroom phone had been wiretapped. Major David Grush, another prominent UAP whistleblower, reportedly faced severe reprisals, including the removal of his security clearance, denial of promotion, and loss of his medical retirement. These widespread and consistent patterns of retaliation highlight a systemic rather than isolated effort to silence truth-tellers. As Joe Spielberger emphasized, whistleblowers risk losing their jobs, careers, livelihoods, and reputations. They can face retaliatory investigations, lawsuits, and even serious criminal charges. They can endure deep mental, emotional, and psychological harm. He noted that whistleblowing has become increasingly politicized, with support often hinging on which party is in power, further jeopardizing their safety and undermining the pursuit of truth. National security whistleblowers are particularly vulnerable, often excluded from comprehensive protection laws, and forced to rely on protection from the same agencies they are alleging retaliated against them. Without robust protections, this chilling effect will continue to deter credible individuals, perpetuating a systemic, self-perpetuating cycle of secrecy and mistrust. In response to mounting public and congressional pressure, the Department of Defense established the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO. Its stated mission is to investigate UAPs using a rigorous scientific framework and a data-driven approach. Its goals include standardizing reporting, improving data collection, and mitigating potential threats. Yet AARO itself has become shrouded in as much skepticism as the phenomena it purports to investigate. AARO's public reports present a mixed record. While some UAP reports are attributed to conventional objects like migratory birds or balloons when sufficient data exists, a significant number of cases remain unresolved due to insufficient or inconclusive data. AARO openly acknowledges that no single explanation accounts for the majority of UAP reports, and that many are labeled unidentified simply because sensors could not collect enough information. This data gap is critically compounded by a profound trust deficit. Witnesses like Chief Wiggins explicitly state they do not trust the organization. This deep mistrust among military and civilian personnel makes them hesitant to report through official channels, thereby starving AARO of the data it needs to perform its mission. This creates a self-perpetuating cycle of non-transparency and lack of resolution.
Are they obfuscating when they claim to have discovered no evidence of extraterrestrial beings, activity, or technology, and are they lying to the American public?
As I said before, it's a manipulation of the public perception. The statement, scientific evidence of extraterrestrials, is a true statement. It is not the truth about what is happening and what we have.
Would any of y'all like to comment on that further? Mr. Knapp, you're getting edgy.
It's splitting hairs. No proof that they're extraterrestrials. What would that proof look like? A piece of kryptonite? What would it be? I mean, we could be talking about different forms of non-human intelligence. I think the dominant paradigm is that they come from outer space, somewhere else, and they have some way that they can cross those vast distances that we can't even imagine doing. But that's not necessarily the answer. So asking for proof of extraterrestrials might not be the answer at all. It's splitting hairs. We don't know where they're from. I don't know anyone who knows the answer for sure. They call them aliens just as a placekeeper kind of a word, but no one in all these programs who've studied this stuff for years, people with much bigger brains than mine, knows the answer for sure.
Yeah, I've talked to Navy folks that some of the deep sea areas, they think there might be something there, that they're here, and I don't know when they got here. Another point that needs to be made is every time, we say we're going to back engineer or whatever you want to call it, these craft, I always say, like, it'd be like if you took I ride motorcycles, but if you took like an Indian or a Harley to the people that came over here on the Mayflower, they'd see a bright, shiny object. They might polish it. They might get it started. I doubt they could. They couldn't work on it. They couldn't put fuel. They wouldn't be able to have the capability of putting fuel in it. I just think that's we're scratching at something that we don't have any knowledge of, and that's why it's just taken so dadgum long. But they do know, the first one that cracks that code, it's over. I mean, it's energy, it's power, it's everything. And I worry too that in the wrong hands that they do that, they keep it from the rest of us because they're so invested in whatever energy sources we have here that their billionaire buddies are going to profit, and they can't retool because they know once it's out on the internet, it's over. And so I think there's a lot of things going after it, and I think that's why the move to discredit folks is so rapid too. I think they point to them and they put the dogs on them. And it disgusts me.
There's a price to be paid for that, too. The Russians and Chinese are trying to figure this out as well, but they don't have the same kind of stigma. They tell their best scientists and engineers, get in there and work on it. And they've been doing it for a very long time, might have a head start on us. Here, we don't have our best scientists and engineers working on it because they've been told it's nonsense. The stigma is very real for people like that.
I agree.
The very structure of AARO is problematic for oversight. All UAP videos since 2021 have been classified as secret or above, and AARO's budget is also classified prohibiting meaningful congressional oversight. Borland even suggested that internal UAP investigations may be compromised due to individuals' fear of losing their 20 or 30-year pension or their kids' health care. The bottom line, based on this testimony, is that an organization designed to bring clarity is itself shrouded in almost as much skepticism as the phenomena it's supposed to be investigating. The persistent data gap they cite is severely compounded by a trust deficit among key witnesses and experts. This leads to a vicious cycle where critical information might never reach official channels, leaving the public with carefully crafted but potentially misleading statements, eroding the very foundation of public trust in democratic institutions.
If you're frustrated, so are we. We're extremely frustrated. We've been, the 2-3 years, I can only imagine how frustrated Mr. Knapp is or Danny Sheehan is, and the amount of time that you guys have poured into this to try to get answers. I mean, Masson is back there. He's been pouring to try to get answers into this. I hope that you all see that we're committed to this. That being said, I think that if the American people want to see answers, it's time to take action. It's time that we pass Whistleblower Act. It's time that we pass the UAP Disclosure Act. And I think that we've had a lot of talk about this. It's time for action.
The future of humanity is one which we either travel to the stars or regress to the Stone Age with this technology. My career has been to deliver critical information to decision makers. Your role as elected by your representatives is to act on it. The time to act is now.
Despite the formidable walls of silence and the systematic suppression of truth, a powerful bipartisan consensus is emerging in Congress. The demand for transparency and accountability concerning UAPs is growing, fueled by the courage of whistleblowers and the persistent efforts of investigative journalists. Key legislative actions such as the UAP Disclosure Act of 2025 and Representative Burchett's UAP Whistleblower Protection Act are at the forefront of this fight. The core principle underpinning this push is that democracy depends on transparency. The reality is that we cause more harm than good when we allow a lack of transparency to fester. It allows for all types of conspiracy theories instead of us actually making the investments that we need to make to get the information and actually provide it to the American people. Congress recognizes its constitutional duty to oversee the executive branch and protect those who speak out. The proposed UAP Whistleblower Protection Act aims to provide ironclad legal protections for whistleblowers and witnesses that transcend existing classification protocols. This is deemed the most critical step to overcome the pervasive stigma and fear of professional repercussions that currently stifle reporting. The UAP Disclosure Act of 2025 is considered very important for restoring both public accountability and trust. Beyond protection, recommendations include establishing a secure non-retaliatory reporting system for all personnel, creating a public-facing data clearinghouse to regularly publish findings and raw data, and a systematic declassification of historical and current UAP data where national security is not demonstrably compromised. These are foundational steps to rebuild trust and provide much-needed context for academic and public understanding. The historical lessons of government secrecy are stark. Joe Spielberger cited the 9/11 Commission's finding that overclassification was a key factor in the failure to adequately prevent the attacks of that day. Similarly, the 2014 VA waiting list scandal demonstrated how vital whistleblowers are in exposing systemic fraud and abuse, highlighting that secrecy directly harms the public interest. The implications of UAPs extend far beyond national security. Jeffrey Nuccitelli noted that exploring these phenomena could unlock transformative breakthroughs in technology, biology, and human understanding. Conversely, Dylan Borland framed the stakes even higher, warning that the future of humanity is one which we either travel to the stars or regress to the Stone Age with this technology. This suggests that withholding this technology or the knowledge of it has profound consequences for our species' development. The unwavering commitment of task force members like Chairwoman Luna and Representative Burchett, who are determined to be on the side of truth, transparency, and accountability, signals a pivotal moment. The bipartisan unity on this issue, with members from both sides of the aisle asking the same kind of questions and honestly wanting the answers, offers a glimmer of hope that this time Congress will not simply drop it for another 50 years. The sentiment is clear. The time to act is now. We have journeyed together through the crossroads of the veil, exploring the profound and perplexing reality of unidentified anomalous phenomena, from the silent massive craft hovering over missile silos at Vandenberg to the transmedium objects emerging from the ocean off California, and the unsettling triangular craft witnessed at Langley Air Force Base. We've heard the staggering, often heartbreaking accounts of whistleblowers like Dylan Borland, who risked everything and lost much, all for the sake of truth. And we've seen how relentless journalists like George Knapp have, for decades, worked to expose a paper trail of lies and a global conspiracy of silence that includes terrifying incidents like Russian UFOs activating nuclear missiles. The evidence points not just towards a reality far more complex than officially acknowledged, but also towards a deliberate and aggressive suppression of that reality. The systemic, self-perpetuating cycle of secrecy and mistrust has created a domain awareness gap that poses significant national security risks and erodes the very foundation of public trust. The questions raised by these accounts are not merely for governments and scientists, they are for all of us. Why are these objects here? What are their intentions, if they have intentions? Their persistent presence over our most powerful and destructive weapons forces us to wonder if we are being watched, studied, or perhaps even warned. The potential to unlock transformative breakthroughs from this technology is immense, yet it seems to be held in the hands of a very few outside the bounds of law and oversight. This cycle of sightings, followed by official denial and ridicule, has repeated for generations, a pattern that seems designed to manage public perception rather than reveal a profound truth. And perhaps the biggest question of all, if this truth, the reality of UAPs, has been hidden for so long, what other profound realities might still be lurking just beyond our grasp, just waiting for us to collectively, finally demand to know? The fight for disclosure is far from over. It is an unfinished chapter in the story of humanity's awakening. This journey, however unsettling, is crucial. It reveals that the pursuit of truth requires vision, courage, and an unwavering resolve to confront the unknown, transcending fear and stagnation. How long can a democracy truly function, truly thrive, when such fundamental truths about the world we inhabit are deliberately kept from its citizens? How do we bridge the chasm between verified experience and the official narrative without falling prey to further manipulation or more half-truths? The time for blind acceptance is over. The time for demanding answers is now. The truth, however challenging, is a prerequisite for genuine progress and for securing our place in the universe. Join us next time as we continue to push the boundaries of what is known and what remains hidden.
I just want to say thank you so much to each and every one of you for being here today, for staying committed to this, and for your courage. I truly believe that courage is contagious. And right now, we need more courage than ever, whether it's UAPs or whether we're dealing with any other form of government where people are afraid to come out and speak their truth. The American people are relying on amazing public servants like you to speak up on their behalf, to be the watchdog, and to make sure that we are as safe as possible.
This is obviously something that doesn't just affect everyone in this room. I can tell you that specifically for where I represent in Pinellas County, Tampa Bay, and Florida as a whole, there's many sightings, many questions, people reporting this, but I'm not the only one. I was also told by Representative Biggs, as well as our great representative from Alaska, that these are not isolated instances, and so it does give us reasoning to provide investigative inquiry into these topics, but also to I would also like Mr. Spielberger, if you could actually review and see if your organization would endorse the Whistleblower Protection Act that Representative Burchett has. I can tell you that I will be signing on to a letter, as well as I'm sure many other members of this task force, and we hope that the ranking chairwoman, or my colleague here, Representative Crockett, as well as our Democrats that were here today, consider also signing on to that, as we do feel that it is time to ensure that our whistleblowers are given adequate protections and that people like Mr. Borland are not facing retribution in the way that they have been. Without objection, the task force stands adjourned.
On Mars, the Curiosity rover found a secret the planet has kept for ages. Drilling into an ancient lake bed, its lab found a strange carbon signature that shocked scientists. On Earth, this same chemical ghost is a clear footprint of life. So a question remains. Was it just an accident, or did the rover find the fossil remains of a dead Martian world? A discovery that could change everything. For now, the truth stays buried, not just in red dust, but under the heavy weight of what it all could mean. As we step back from the crossroads, remember, the story doesn't end here, because this is just the beginning. Searching for the knowledge and wisdom to unravel the mysteries of our universe. Unexplained sightings, spirits, and science. They are all connected in the grand tapestry of life. So remember, keep pulling at the threads, because this has been Crossroads of the Veil.